We come now to question number 1 in the name of Chris Tremain.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, in preparing for the budget on May 28th, what role does he see for state services in rebuilding the economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, state services represent about 30% of the New Zealand economy, so the sector has a significant influence on New Zealand's overall performance. When the private sector is tightening its belt, it is not sustainable or reasonable for state service wage and salaries to continue rising at 3 or 4% a year, as some are now. These costs are falling on taxpayers who are unlikely to be getting 3 or 4% pay rises this year.
Chris Tremain.
Supplementary. Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, what steps has the Minister taken to ensure that state services remuneration practices reflect the difficult economic environment?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, the government believes it is important that wage expectations in state services reflect the wider economy. Therefore, I've written to all ministers reminding them we have a firm and consistent view on remuneration pressures. I outlined my view that we do not fund any remuneration pressures through the budget process, and we will be looking for state services pay restraint and productivity growth. There may be some groups who believe they have a special case on grounds of fairness or relativity. However, our overall expectation is that any remuneration pressures will be self-funded.
Grant. Robertson. My apologies, Grant.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What does the Minister think the reaction will be among police officers, social workers, prison officers and other hard-working public servants to the news that they will be getting a pay freeze, but there will be no cuts to ministerial services for the National Government, and that under his government 36 press secretaries are paid more than $150,000, twice as many as under Labour?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, well, in the first case, he's wrong, but police and social workers are working every day with New Zealanders who are feeling the stress of the recession, and in my view, they will be much more realistic about state pay pressures than the Labor Party are.
Supplementary.
Chris Tremain.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, what recent reports has the Minister seen about the private sector labour market?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, Treasury's monthly economic indicators issued yesterday reported that the majority of firms have reduced staff numbers in recent months and expect to make further reductions in the coming year. Private sector wage and salary expectations, therefore, have fallen significantly in recent months. The previous government was focusing on increasing the public service. This government is focusing on increasing services to the public.
Grant Robertson.
Why does the Minister think it is acceptable to give himself an effective pay increase of $2,500 a year, but tell police officers, social workers, firemen, prison officers and other hard-working public servants that they have to accept a pay freeze?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, well, in the first place, there is no pay freeze. Chief executives have a clear direction from the government that they should be looking at pay restraint and productivity gains. Secondly, all of the groups that the member has mentioned are benefiting from tax cuts. On the 1st of April, someone on the average wage gets the equivalent of $18.50 per week, and that is a significant boost in their after-tax income, which they would not have got if they had voted Labor, and that's why they didn't vote Labor.
Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, can he confirm that, according to answers to written questions, the state services saved $4.7 million last year through Gov3 sustainability initiatives? And if so, is he concerned that these initiatives have been axed and even mocked by the Prime Minister as being hug-a-polar-bear initiatives when they are actually saving taxpayers many millions of dollars?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, there were some very expensive and somewhat symbolic schemes that the Minister for the Environment has determined quite sensibly weren't worth the money. but I'm quite sure that with the reduction in travel, in conferences, in workshops and the production of useless but large strategies, that over the next 12 months state services will be emitting less carbon and causing less climate change than any of the last 9 years under the last government.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, what's wrong with a state service like Inland Revenue, which saved about $1 million annually on reduced energy, minimising waste and engaging in other kinds of polar bear PDA? What's wrong with IRD saving over $1 million when it only costs $700,000 to actually make those savings? Isn't that good because it saves the taxpayer money?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, there's nothing wrong with Inland Revenue saving $1 million, except to say that over the next few years that won't be anything like enough.
Question. The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Can the Prime Minister give the House, can the Minister of Finance give the House an assurance that all agreements currently entered into will be funded by the government?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I can give that assurance. It is, however, because these are legally binding agreements, of course the government will meet its legal obligations. However, it will create a problem of fairness. Quite large groups of state servants in this 12 months will be getting substantial pay increases. About half of the public service will get pay increases, and a good number of them increases of between 3 to 5%. And I believe the public will not be tolerant of those groups protesting that they're not getting enough.
Question number 2, the Honourable. Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
Speaker, I seek leave to table a document from Inland Revenue dated 25th of February this year showing the savings they're making through their Gov3 sustainability initiatives.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection?